We are back and gonna paint these guys. I found a picture of some online I thought looked pretty cool that were simple enough I might could pull off and make it look pretty good. So I got my wet palette set up. They did their robes in a brownish leathery look, and then I got the orange out. I'm gonna try mixing it with the red or mixing it with the brown to get some color variations. And theirs, and it looked pretty cool. I think I'm gonna try it when they highlight it, instead of using the bright red like I did on the other figures. They had a duller color. I'm gonna try that. I think it looked pretty cool. So I got my basic colors here, and okay, I'm gonna get started and we'll come back and see what it looks like. All right, so far all I did was I mixed up some gray and touched up their skin. They don't have a lot. I did their hands gloveless. They got their arms, their elbow parts sticking out, and then a little bit of face. I'm going to do their helmet actually covering their eyes, make it like a visor. The rest of it is covered. Then mixed a tiny bit of the blue in with the gray. Don't know if you can see the difference in the gray and the blue there. It's kind of showing up. Anyway, I added a little bit of blue to the gray, and then I just touched it over the top. Went pretty thick with the gray to cover it, and then get a nice coat everywhere, and then just kind of dabbed a streak of the blue over it to get a little shadowing. And then after I do a little more painting, I can do some wash even over the skin, and that should help really with their arms. But that's it so far. Put a coat of just straight brown on there for the cloth leather-like work, and picked a few spots here and there. Looks pretty good, but it did not want, I don't know, this brown paint does not coat well. Maybe I should have painted a little gray underneath first. So I'm going to let that dry really well. It's been drying for a while, and I'm going to go back over it again with another coat. I want to get it really good with the brown before I come back and lighten it up to give it some weathered, aged look. Alright, looking pretty good so far, but that's just a start. Got a second coat on, and while it was drying, I decided to paint some of the silver. Let's see if I can get some light on this. Some of the metal. There we go. It's kind of showing up. So I did the elbow guards and the shoulder, the boots, the blades at the top and bottom of the gun, and then the backpack part. I didn't do the whole thing. I didn't want to do the whole thing and just make it a big mess. And then like the metal loops there, I did them in my metallic craft paint, and it looks pretty good. We're gonna let that dry real good, come back with a wash before we go in and do some more detail work. Did a wash over the whole thing, pretty much. Dabbed it on in places so they wouldn't settle too much, especially on the face and arms, but I did get some in just the muscle definitions and stuff. Got it all over it. It looks good. I mean, I could stop here, but I wanted to do some more detailing. So I want to get some of that orangish red color along the visor of the helmet, spots on the gun, and then maybe do some highlighting coloring on the leather parts, and then maybe do some mud on the boots. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out, but so far it looks good. I'm pleased with it, just how it looks even at this point. Yesterday I started running out of sunlight. It got cloudy, and then I just got kind of busy, and so I just put this off until today. Maybe I'll be able to see a little better. So this looks pretty cool. This is not that bright, weird, almost fluorescent orange straight out of the bottle. I mixed it with some red. And it's got a much better look to it and flow to it. So we're going to hit a few spots on the gun, a few spots on the armor, especially on the visor part of the helmet, and maybe pick a spot or two. Yeah, let's see how that looks. It's looking pretty good. Got the eyes bits on the gun and these leather pouches like area on the belt, and then some areas there. Still trying to decide how to do some highlights on this without ruining the paint job. See if we can't figure that out. I have the other two painted. They turned out pretty good. I mixed some yellow with some brown, and instead of using my gold looking yellow, I had a little bit of this real yellow left. It's a little brighter color. Mixed it with the brown. Got this weird dirty yellow look. And I'm just liberally putting it on the brush and then rubbing the edge of the brush along some of the edges of these leather strips hanging down. Little more than a dry brush, but going for a similar effect. Getting the edges and a few other key spots. Putting it thick in some spots and really thin in others, and it's giving it this worn, weathered, dirty look on the ends. It's pretty cool looking. So I'm going to keep working on that just to make sure that it's smooth and not blotchy. And if you have to, you just rinse your brush, get it as clean as you can, but keep the brush a little damp, and then pull off some of the paint, move it around to thin it out in spots, especially on flat surface areas. Don't want it to collect. It's looking pretty good. Probably can't see it on the camera. I did a little dry brushing of some brown on the boots to make it look like mud splatter or something like that, and the discoloration on those looks pretty cool. I'm actually happy with how that turned out, and I know the orange doesn't have a wash over it, but I'm actually not worried about it. It's a little thin in places, and so there's some discoloration, and I'm just going to leave it like that. It's on the gun anyway, mostly, and on these parts it's a lot more dull, and so it has some natural shadowing effects to it. Don't want to overdo it with the wash because the wash looks so good on the armor and the boots. I'm going to leave that, but what I want to try now to see how this to see how this will look, I want to get a little bit of just straight white, some fresh white that's nice, and then get it on the edge of the brush, and I want to come in here and hit the very edge. Oh, not that. So let's wash the brush off. Already goofed. Let's go in there and get that white off before it dries. There we go. Not a problem. What I want to do, if I can, is to rub the very edge like a highlight with the white to make it really stand out. My hand is shaking a little bit, and this is a small area. just the very edge. And then along the bottom, this will hopefully give it even more saturation and worn look, as it kind of blends a little bit with that yellowy brown. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just ever so slightly rubbing the edges with this white paint. And if you get a little more on there than you want, all you have to do is start rubbing it off or into the middle of the fabric to thin it out, like here for instance. So I'll get some there on the edge and then take some off the brush and rub. Here we go. That looks pretty cool. It's at least giving some different, I'm going to do it more like a dry brush right here. It's giving it some different fluctuations in the level of degradation. That looks pretty cool. Don't know if you can see. There you go. Some of the tips are white, like they're really worn out and threadbare, and got a little bit too much right there, so I'll thin that out, but it looks pretty cool. Gonna finish that up on the other two. Just hit that with some highlights, like that, white highlights on the edges of these, and I think I'm gonna call that on these guys. They look pretty cool. I'm pretty pleased with that. So we'll finish that up and get some close-up pictures so that you can see the detail and I can kind of show it off. I'm pretty pleased with it. So get your brushes out, do some painting, okay? Stay safe, be healthy. God bless.